Hi, I'm Chef Katherine in the Growing Chefs Ontario Classroom Kitchen, and I'm going to teach you how to make lemon curd. If you've never had lemon curd, it's a beautiful preserve. It's really thick and has a very nice silky mouthfeel. It is lemons, butter, egg yolks, and sugar. That's it. It's very, very simple to make. So if you haven't already done so, wash your hands, gather your mise en place, and let's get started. When making lemon curd, things can go wrong very quickly if you don't have everything measured out ahead of time because it requires constant attention on the stove when you're cooking it. So don't skip this step. I'm going to start by preparing my lemons here. So I need to zest them and then I need to juice them. So I have a rasp here. I'm just going to finely grate them with the rasp. If you don't have a rasp at home, you can just use the teeth of a fine grater and that will work fine as well. Just be careful not to get too much of the white part of the lemon, the pith, because it's a little bit bitter. So I'm just grating and turning as I go, just to get a little bit of that lemon peel to give it an extra nice and fresh pop of lemony flavor. Okay, so I've got a couple teaspoons of lemon zest in here. I'm going to give my lemons a little bit of a roll, and that will help them just release their juices. And I'll cut them in half with my paring knife. And I just have a fine sieve. So I'm going to squeeze the lemon juice into this bowl with the zest here. And this sieve is just going to catch any seeds along the way, so I don't have to dig them out afterwards. So we ended up with just under a cup of lemon juice, which is perfect. You can use any type of citrus when making a curd. Clementines are super delicious, so is grapefruit or blood oranges. You just would use the same recipe, but then just switch out your citrus fruits. So I'm gonna now prepare my eggs here. Before I do that, I'll just give my cutting board a quick wipe down. I'm only using the egg yolks for this recipe. I'm gonna save the whites for another use. I find that the easiest way to separate the yolks from the whites is just using my hands. So I'm going to crack the egg and I'm just going to break it over the bowl and then let the whites slip out between my fingers, and then I'll just put the yolks into this bowl here. So again, just crack, let it slip out, making sure of course that there's no eggshells in here. And then gently put my egg yolk in the bowl. There we go, yolks and whites are separated. I'm just gonna go wash my hands. I've set up a double boiler, which is just a pot on a stove with a couple inches of water. This is gonna work to very gently cook our preserves. So the next step is to just tip my egg yolks into the bowl here. And I've measured out my sugar. So I'm going to whisk these together very well. You want this mixture to be pale. You'll see that it's going to lighten in color as I whisk it. So you can really see now that the egg yolks have lightened a lot in color. They have a lot more volume from my whisking it. The sugar looks a little bit less granular, so that's perfect. Now I'm going to switch over from my whisk once I've incorporated this lemon juice and zest into here, and then instead I'm going to use my spatula. So everything here is all mixed together very well. The reason why I'm going to use the spatula now instead of the whisk is because the whisk incorporates a lot of air, and I don't want to do that when I'm cooking it. I just want it to be gently scraped off the sides so that it doesn't burn. My double boiler is ready here. I can see it's just starting to bubble a little bit, which is perfect. We only want it at a simmer, not a full boil, so that it can cook this lemon curd nice and gently. I'm going to add a pinch of salt into the lemon curd as well. It's always important not to forget salt when you're baking, because even though it's not a savory thing, the salt will really bring up the flavors. So what I need to do is just gently stir the curd around. And because this is egg yolks, like I said before, things can go south very fast if you're not prepared. The egg yolks, if you have the heat too high, can overcook. So that's why we want just a very low simmer and a gentle, constant heat. And I'm scraping down the edges of the bowl at all time with my spatula. What I'm gonna notice is as this heats, the egg yolk is gonna begin to cook. It'll cook very gently, and all of a sudden, instead of it being a really thin, drippy curd, it will be thick enough to coat the edge of the spatula, and if I run my finger through it, it will stay. That's the magic moment that we're looking for in making a lemon curd. It takes probably about 4 to 5 minutes for this curd to heat up enough for it to thicken. So in the meantime, just be patient and keep waiting for it to thicken. It's also important to make sure that you're holding the bowl with a clean tea towel here, because the steam that's coming up from the edges is very hot and you want to make sure you don't get any of that on your fingers. So what I'm noticing in this bowl here is that the sugar's not feeling as granular. It is starting to warm up, which is good. That means the next step is thickening. Okay, I'm starting to notice that it is becoming a lot thicker, and I can feel when I'm scraping the edges of the bowl that it's starting to cling to them a little bit more, and I can also feel it in the bottom. And just with this spatula, I can feel that it's a lot thicker. So I'm just gonna give it about 30 more seconds of stirring. And this is the magic moment where you have to be ready to pull the lemon curd off of the stove right away. Otherwise, you'll end up with scrambled eggs, which is not what we're going for in this case here. Okay, so it's nice and thick. If I have my spoon here, I can see it coats the end of it very nicely, and it takes a while to drip it off. So I'm with my towel in my hand and carefully pick it up, being careful of that steam. And I'll turn off my stove here and get that out of the way. So the last thing that we need to do is I've already cubed up some cold butter in here. I'm just gonna add it in kind of a chunk or 2 or 3 at a time and make sure that it's fully incorporated before I add another chunk. This is just gonna make our lemon curd extra rich and super delicious. You'll also notice as I'm adding the butter in that it gets shinier. And we don't want to add all the butter at once, just because you don't want your lemon curd to split. That's when you have a fat. And what we're doing now with the fat is emulsifying it into our lemon curd. If we add too much at once, they could separate, and that would not be good. A lemon curd is a super delicious preserve that you can use in a lot of different applications. I like to use it as a filling for pies. It's also great as a layer between cakes, or even just a small bowl with some fresh berries is a super delicious treat. All of my butter has melted into the lemon curd nicely. If you do find that you have any chunks, for example, you cooked the eggs a little bit longer than you needed to, what you can do is you can actually just strain it through a fine mesh sieve, and that will help get rid of those chunks. But this one looks pretty good, so it's okay. So I'm just going to now tip it into a clean bowl that I have here. And I'm gonna set it in the fridge to cool for about 20 minutes or half an hour. And during that process, it's going to thicken up even more. I'm also going to put some plastic wrap just on the top of it. And what this will do is it will prevent it from forming a skin, which is okay. If that happens, you just have to peel it off. Okay, so plastic wrap just goes over top here. And I'm actually just going to press it right down onto the surface of my lemon curd. And we'll be back in 20 minutes to check on it. Our lemon curd is nice and thick. I just took it out of the fridge, and you can really see after chilling it how much it thickens. So I just have a tart shell here. I'm just going to fill it up with lemon curd, and I have some fresh blueberries that I'm going to use as a garnish for it. This is just a pâte sucrée, which means like a sweet cookie tart shell. So just enough that it's kind of level with the top. That looks great there. And I'll just put that down here. And then I'm going to garnish with just a few fresh blueberries. Blueberries and lemon go together so nicely. And just a little bit of icing sugar. There we go. Now we have a nice and beautiful dessert.